The gym was a temple of iron and sweat. The air thick with the clang of weights and the low hum of effort. It was late afternoon, the hour when the dedicated filed in, their routines as sacred as rituals. Among them was Jamal. A lean, wiry man in his late 20s. His dark skin glistening under the fluorescent lights as he moved through his sets with quiet precision. He wasn't the biggest guy in the room, but his form was flawless. Every rep deliberate. Every movement a testament to discipline over show. Jamal didn't come to the gym to flaunt. He came to build. To carve out a version of himself that could withstand the world outside. But the world outside had a way of seeping in. 3 bodybuilders, their physiques chiseled to exaggerated proportions, had been watching Jamal for weeks. They called themselves the Steel Crew, a nickname they'd given themselves, though it carried more bravado than respect. There was Vance, the leader. With a neck like a pillar and a smirk that never faded. Derek, his right-hand man. Whose veins bulged like cables under his skin. And Silas, the quiet one. Whose silence was more threatening than the others' loud posturing. They decided, for reasons born of their own insecurities, that Jamal didn't belong. It started with murmurs. Soft enough to be dismissed, but sharp enough to sting. "Look at this guy, acting like he runs the place," Vance muttered, loud enough for Jamal to hear as he racked his weights. Derek chuckled, adding, "Bet he's just here for the clout." Silas, leaning against a squat rack, just stared, his eyes cold and unyielding. Jamal ignored them, as he always did. He'd faced worse, on the streets, in offices, in life. The gym was supposed to be his refuge. But refuges, he'd learned, were only as safe as the people inside them. Today, though, the murmurs grew louder. The taunts bolder. Jamal was mid-deadlift, his focus razor-sharp, when Vance sauntered over. His massive frame casting a shadow over the barbell. "Yo, Slim," he said, his voice dripping with mock friendliness. "You sure you're in the right place? This ain't the cardio room." Derek and Silas flanked him, their laughter a low rumble. Jamal set the bar down. His breathing steady. And met Vance's gaze. "I'm where I need to be," he said. His voice calm but firm, like steel wrapped in silk. Vance's smirk faltered, but only for a moment. He stepped closer, invading Jamal's space. His chest puffed out like a beast's. "You don't get it, do you?" Vance said. "This is our gym. We don't need pretenders clogging up the racks." The room seemed to shrink. The other gym-goers, men and women alike, averting their eyes. Pretending to focus on their own workouts. The silence was deafening. A collective cowardice that emboldened the trio. Derek cracked his knuckles, a theatrical gesture. While Silas picked up a dumbbell, tossing it lightly in his hand like a weapon. "Maybe you should pack up and go, before things get messy," Silas hissed. His voice low and menacing. Jamal's jaw tightened. But he didn't back down. He'd faced bullies before. He knew their game. They thrived on fear. On submission. He wasn't about to give them either. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. His voice steady, despite the adrenaline surging through him. "You got a problem, take it up with someone who cares." The air crackled with tension. Vance's face darkened. His ego bruised by Jamal's defiance. He shoved Jamal hard, sending him stumbling back into the weight rack. The clang of metal echoed through the gym. But still, no one moved. No one spoke. Jamal caught himself. His hands gripping the rack for balance. His eyes never leaving Vance's. "That's your free one," Jamal said. His voice low. "Dangerous. Touch me again, and we're gonna have a problem." Vance laughed. But it was forced. A performance for his cronies. "Oh, we got a tough guy here," he said, stepping closer. His massive arms flexing. Derek and Silas closed in, forming a semicircle around Jamal, cutting off his escape. The gym felt like a pressure cooker, the air heavy with the promise of violence. Jamal's heart pounded, but he stood his ground, his mind racing. He wasn't a fighter by nature, but he'd learned long ago that sometimes, you had to fight to be left alone. Across the gym, near the free weights, a man watched. He was leaner than the bodybuilders, his frame compact, but radiating a quiet intensity. His name was Jason. Jason Statham. Though no one in the gym knew him as anything other than the quiet guy who lifts heavy and leaves. He wasn't a regular, not exactly. But he showed up often enough to be a familiar face. His shaved head gleamed under the lights, and his eyes, sharp and calculating, took in the scene with the precision of a predator sizing up its prey. He'd been watching Jamal for weeks. Not out of suspicion, but respect. He recognized the grind, the focus, the refusal to be anything less than excellent. And now, he saw the storm brewing. Jason set down the dumbbells he'd been curling. His movements slow, deliberate. He didn't need to rush. He never did. His life, though no one here knew the details, had been a series of high-stakes moments, each one teaching him the value of timing. He wiped his hands on a towel, his eyes never leaving the confrontation. Vance was escalating now, shoving Jamal again, this time with enough force to knock him into the mirror behind the rack. The glass shuddered, but didn't break. Jamal's hands balled into fists, his body coiled, ready to defend himself. But he was outnumbered, and he knew it. "Last chance, Slim," Vance growled, his voice thick with menace. "Walk away, or we make you walk away." Derek cracked his neck, a grin spreading across his face, while Silas tossed the dumbbell again, his eyes gleaming with intent. The bystanders remained frozen, their silence a betrayal. Jamal's eyes darted around, searching for an out. But there was none. He was cornered. And he knew what came next. That's when Jason moved. He didn't announce himself, didn't shout or posture. He simply walked, his steps measured, his presence cutting through the tension like a blade. The gym seemed to shift around him, the air growing heavier as he approached. Vance noticed him first, his smirk faltering as he registered the look in Jason's eyes. A look that promised consequences. "What's this?" Vance said, turning to face him. "You got something to say, old man?" Jason didn't answer. He didn't need to. He stopped a few feet away, his stance relaxed, but ready. His eyes locked on Vance's. "Step back," he said, his voice low, gravelly, carrying the weight of someone who'd seen, and caused, more than his share of pain. Vance laughed. But it was nervous now. The kind of laugh you let out when you're not sure you're in control anymore. "You serious, mate?" he said, trying to regain his footing. "This ain't your fight." "It is now," Jason said. The words were simple, but they landed like a punch. Jamal, still braced against the mirror, looked at Jason, surprise flickering in his eyes. He didn't know this man, but he recognized the shift in the room, the way the air seemed to bend around him. Derek, eager to prove himself, stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "You think you're tough, huh?" he said, raising a fist. Jason didn't flinch. In a blur of motion, he caught Derek's wrist, twisted it just enough to make him wince, and used his momentum to shove him back into Silas, who stumbled, dropping the dumbbell with a crash. The gym went silent. The only sound, the heavy breathing of the men involved. Vance, enraged, swung at Jason. A wild haymaker. Fueled by ego and adrenaline. Jason ducked under it with ease. His movements fluid. Practiced. He countered with a sharp jab to Vance's ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, but enough to make him gasp and double over. I said step back, Jason repeated. His voice unchanged, as if he were ordering coffee. Silas lunged next. But Jason sidestepped, grabbing his arm and using his own weight to send him crashing into a nearby bench. Derek recovered, charging at Jason with a roar. But Jason was ready. He pivoted. Caught Derek in a chokehold. Not squeezing, just holding him in place like a misbehaving dog. You done? Jason asked. His tone almost bored. Derek struggled, his face reddening. But he couldn't break free. Vance, still clutching his side, glared at Jason. His bravado crumbling. Who the hell are you? He spat. Someone who doesn't like bullies, Jason said. He released Derek, who stumbled back, gasping. Silas was back on his feet, but he didn't advance. His eyes wide with something like fear. The gym was still silent. But now the bystanders were watching. Some with awe. Others with shame for their inaction. Jason turned to Jamal, who was still standing by the mirror. His fists unclenched, but his body tense. You good? Jason asked. Jamal nodded. His voice steady but laced with gratitude. Yeah. Thanks. Don't thank me, Jason said. His eyes softening for a moment. Just keep doing what you're doing. He glanced at the trio, who were now backing away. Their egos deflated. Their dominance shattered. You three, he said, his voice cold again. Find another gym. Or next time, I won't be so polite. Vance opened his mouth to retort. But something in Jason's gaze stopped him. The trio slunk away. Their footsteps heavy. Their pride in tatters. The gym slowly came back to life. The clank of weights and hum of conversation resuming. But the air was different now. Charged with a new respect. Jamal approached Jason, extending a hand. I don't know who you are, man, but, thank you. For real. Jason shook his hand. His grip firm, but not crushing. Name's Jason, he said. And you don't owe me anything. Just keep showing up. Jamal nodded. A smile breaking through the tension in his face. I will. He paused, then added. You're not like most guys around here. Jason smirked. A rare crack in his stoic facade. You have no idea. As Jason walked back to his weights, the gym seemed to exhale. Jamal returned to his deadlifts, his focus sharper than ever. Fueled not just by discipline, but by something new. A sense of belonging. Earned not through fists, but through the quiet courage of standing his ground. And in the background, Jason watched. His eyes scanning the room. Always ready. Always waiting. A guardian. In a world that too often looked the other way.